Mr. X here. It is time for another statue review. We just need a statue to review, I guess. Whoa! Where'd he come from? He is almost as fast as me. Before we dive into the extreme review of this custom 1/4 scale flash piece, check out the speed build. Hey, thanks for tuning in to the Extreme channel. My name is Mr. X, and today we're looking at another custom statue. That's right, a custom is a private, unlicensed commission, and this, of course, is The Flash from DC Comics, the fastest man alive. And I purchased him because when I saw the renders of this piece, I thought it was amazing. For so long, I've wanted a Flash statue that actually really showcased his powers. And this does on so many different levels. We're going to talk about that. However, kind of as a spoiler, as this project progressed, and I saw a few work in progress photos, which I hate seeing because I've already bought it, so I might as well just wait. Over that 2-year period, I saw some stuff that was kind of questionable. So that's what we're going to focus on today during the Extreme Review. We're going to see if they were able to execute on such an amazing concept. So, growing up, I was a big fan of The Flash like most people. Everyone wanted to be the fastest man alive. I remember watching the very old Flash shows, and I think that the actor for that Flash is actually showcased in the CW series now because I've seen a few of those episodes. I think he's actually the father of Flash. As I said, Flash is a DC hero. He's part of the Justice League, and his superpower is super speed. So as you can see, there is actually a ton to cover on this guy, so let's not waste any time, and let's start with the concept of this piece. And as I alluded to, the concept is actually why I purchased him, because it is amazing. It really showcases his power. Now, because of that, there's a lot of stuff going on with design, which we'll talk about next, both good and bad. But let's take a look. So Flash is obviously on a street, and he is running. And not only is he running, but he is running so fast that the street is being destroyed. You see an explosion of power, whether that's an explosion he's coming out of or an explosion that he actually caused. What you're seeing right now, it's kind of hard to showcase every part of the statue. We'll look at during the video. But he is jumping forward. He has lightning bolts coming out of his chest because there is a lightning factor to his actual super speed. And there's the streak, which he's sometimes called the streak, right behind him. And that is an optional display option we'll look at. A fire hydrant is flying back in the wind. It's blown up, whether he blew it up because he was running so fast, or the explosion or the bullets that you actually see he's running away from. Same thing with the street lamp, and he is focused. He is looking forward, and you actually see more of a streak effect coming out of his fins or antenna or whatever you want to call them, and it looks phenomenal. I think this is one of the most elaborate and craziest, coolest concepts I've ever seen. When you look at a Flash statue, a lot of times, while they can do it really well, it's still pretty boring. Case in point, the most recent one here from Sideshow Collectibles. It's done phenomenally on every single level. The paint's great, the sculpt's great, but the concept is kind of boring and doesn't really showcase the powers like Flash does on here. So quite simply put, this concept is a 5 out of 5. And did they execute on it? I would say they did. However, there are a lot of design problems, which is what we're going to jump into right now. Not only are what I would say a lot of problems, but there's a lot of options. But before we look at those, let's actually look at the real assembly of this piece, because it wasn't easy. Came in 2 boxes, and they had a decent amount of weight. Your standard black custom foam in each one, of course. Here was the first box. It was the base, and then a few of the other parts like a portrait and some bullets. Second box actually had 2 layers to it. You can see Flash and some of the streak here, and then more of the streak and a lot of the other parts. Quite a few pieces. All right, also dimensions are incredibly hard to get because there's so many different parts to this, but roughly the deepest point is a little under 25 inches. Bullets go out a little bit farther. The highest point of the lamp post is 24 inches. Flash is about 19 and a half, and I'll tell you in a second why I'm looking at those. Then the widest point is probably about 16 inches. So he takes up the space of 2 or 3 other 1/4 scale pieces, which I don't like. However, if I had to choose a flash, I'd much rather have him showcasing his powers. Now let's look at all the switch out options. So first you have a mass portrait, and he kind of has a smirk on his face. This one has the streaks coming out of the fins or antenna or whatever you want to call them. Then a very similar portrait, he just doesn't have that smirk. Everything else is the same. And then an unmasked portrait, which actually is done really well. And on a side note, this unmasked portrait looks very much like the custom reverse flash I used to own. This piece right here. And I actually love this piece, and I wish I didn't sell it because he would pair perfect with this guy, not only because obviously it's a custom reverse flash, but it's actually made by the same producer. With everything else going on, there are other display options, so let me kind of talk about those because I don't know if it's meant to display separately, but you can. So first of all, the streak effect right here, you can remove it. And because this is one of my favorite parts of the concept, I will not do that. Also with that, I almost wonder, because there are parts that are hollow, if you could put a light up effect in there. I don't think it would look good because it would have to face one way or the other, but something to note. Also, these bullets right here. So here's a picture with the bullets. These bullets you can actually remove. However, it does leave some holes in the actual statue, so I don't know if you'd want to display them with or without. His lightning bolts that come out of his chest, kind of the same scenario. You can display them in, like I have them here, or you can remove them, but it leaves those little holes. Now lastly, depending which way you displayed him, I suppose if you really wanted to, you could remove the lamppost up here. It will leave a little bit of gap, but if you're displaying him like this, where I'm seeing him, or here, you wouldn't really see that. So if you had a height issue, you could do that. So a whole bunch of display options. I think I'm going to display him as is in his full glory, despite some of the paint and sculpt issues we're going to talk about. So design, I think there's a lot of good options. However, some of this is really fragile. So for example, one of these lightning bolts broke in 2 places when I picked it up. Also, down here, these are barely setting in, the water and the top of the fire hydrant. And let's actually talk about that for a second. There's kind of an ongoing joke in the statue community that if a base is boring, a lot of people try and put a fire hydrant on it to make it look better, and it actually makes it look worse. Now, I totally agree with that theory. I probably have about 8 or 9 statues that it's just a base and a fire hydrant. However, I think that this is the exception to the rule where it makes it look amazing. Really quick, here's another picture of it. I love the fact that this really shows this is a frozen moment in time. The fire hydrant is being destroyed from the bottom, from the top, and water is flying out. This is a statue you want a fire hydrant on. This is a statue you want it busting out like that. So absolutely fantastic. Another issue I had, the streak that actually goes on the bottom doesn't quite fit around his leg. A piece actually had to break off for me to get it in. However, it's a piece you can't see, so not really a big deal. Also, the streak effect doesn't really sit flush on him. I can get past that. And you can see the magnets inside the streak effect. But I don't know how you would do it another way right here. And that doesn't really bother me, but it definitely is there. So normally, when you're talking about design of this piece, I would say it ranks between a 2 or a 3. However, you guys have heard me say many times before, the more elaborate you go, the more points you get. Now, some of you question, okay, this is a custom, so it's an unlicensed private commission. They only made 30 of them. Why wouldn't ever a large company do something this elaborate? Because it's too hard to pull off, and there are a lot of anal buyers out there that would just lose their shit seeing some of this stuff. So overall, I'm stuck between a 3 and a 4. I think the design's a 3 out of 5 on this piece. While it is elaborate, some of it could have been executed better. And it's kind of the same with the paint and sculpt. So I want to do a video because there's just so much different stuff going on here. So take a look at the paint and sculpt of this piece. So as I said, this piece is kind of complicated because there's a lot going on that I like and a lot that I'm kind of questioning. Starting with the rock-like base. I don't like the paint on this at all. I mean, it's not horrible. I do like the fact that they used a different array of colors. You have some speckled green, almost like it's kind of mold and moss growing, that speckled white, and then the darker gray. I think it's too gray or too light gray overall. I think I will have Mrs. X be repainting this piece. You're going to see a few other reasons why. So I think the concrete's a little bit of a miss, mostly because of the paint. The sculpt is okay. The fire is a big miss. You know, I wish they would have done what they did with Sideshow's Deadpool Heatseeker Premium format. That's kind of some of the best explosion I've seen. It's very blah to me, and I think more of it is actually the sculpt of it than the paint. However, the paint doesn't complement the sculpt very well, but I can get past all that. It's nothing that bothers me that much. The manhole, or sorry, 2021 person hole right here, doesn't look like a real person hole. You know, a lot of times some of my other statues, whether it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or a Thing statue I have a New York City. Obviously, this would supposedly be Central City. Sewer cover, manhole, kind of a miss there. Also with the fire hydrant. Again, the concept of this is amazing. Little bit of texture and detail missing on this fire hydrant, but it still looks okay. The water effect is nice. I really like that. And then I don't know if this is supposed to be glue right here or just a continuation of the water effect. It still looks okay either way. But the water effect is done really well. I'm impressed with that. And the light pole. You know, this has more of a cartoon comic feel to it. Maybe that's why some of this micro detail is missing, but I like the paint on the light pole. The newspaper is fantastic. Look at that. Flash vanishes in crisis. I'm sure it's a decal on there, but it looks really good. Even the lights up here are nice. Like I said, it's so weird as you go back and forth. Some things are really good. Flash himself, the anatomy of Flash I like quite well. He's slim but muscular, and his suit doesn't have any texture, which I would like to see a little bit of texture, but I think for the purposes of Flash, it's okay without. So I'm actually a fan of the actual Flash body. I like how the paint is kind of fading from the explosion right here, the gold paint on his boots into kind of this white color. Paint's a little messy on the belt right here. Mrs. X might just repaint this whole thing someday. And then there's a little bit of bleed over. See that right there where the red meets the gold? Not a fan of that. I don't think it's intentional. I think it's just sloppiness. His physique, as I said here, looks good. Symbol, again, a little bit of bleed over. Then here you see some speckled red on the gold bracelet aspect of it, and I don't know if this is because it's supposed to be a blur or if it was just messy. I like to think it's because it's supposed to be a blur, but I don't know. Now, one thing I want to show you on the sculpt of his hands, that's a big miss for me right there. How his fingers essentially aren't differentiated. And it kind of points to a lot of things in this statue. Just not a fan of the quality of some of this stuff that was picked. Now, look at his portrait. His unmasked portrait looks fantastic in my opinion. I think they did a really nice job. Reminds me a lot of, like I said, that reverse flash they did. I really like it. I think the paint's done well. I think the sculpt's done well. The print's done well. And let's switch out portraits here for you. Same thing with this. A little bit too light on the pink lips there, but the rest of it looks good. The skin tones, the mask, and then here's kind of those effects that are coming off this portrait here. And then the clear resin here. Like I said, you can display it with or without it, and the concept looked a lot better than the execution, but I do like it, and I definitely will display it with it. I think the best way to summarize this statue, you know, is from right about here, it's pretty cool. Farther back, it's amazing, but up close, just a few small details that I think they missed. The last thing I guess we didn't cover were the bullets. Definitely gonna have her repaint these. Like I said, she might do the whole thing. I would like to see these in a cloud of smoke. I think that it was just a wrong choice to do these with the gold, but so much potential for this piece. So I'm not completely, even though there's some things I'm not happy with, I'm not completely throwing this out yet. I wouldn't actually throw it out, but So paint, I think this piece, at least the base for sure, is due for a repaint by my wife, Mrs. X. And overall, some of the other issues we saw with some of the color bleeding, I think it's a 2 out of 5 on the paint, unfortunately. The execution just is not great. Sculpt, I'm a little bit more torn. Sculpt, there were some things like Flash himself, which is one of the most important parts, despite a lot of other stuff going on in the base, I think is done well. I really like that unmasked portrait. I like the paint on that unmasked portrait too. But I think the sculpt's a 3 out of 5 at best. I think there's definitely a little bit of argument. It could be a little lower than that. But Flash himself, I think, is done really well. So now let's jump into value of this guy. As I said, they only made 30 of them, so he is a really rare piece. $800 was the retail, which honestly is the going price for a 1/4 scale piece, especially with all this going on. However, because it was a custom, it was shipped from overseas, so I think it was 300 shipping. It was 300 or 400, I can't remember exactly. So you are about $1,100 all in for this. And as you saw, I'm hesitant to ever repack this and try and resell it. However, I plan to keep my 1/4 scale Justice League line and villains for a long, long time. So I don't really have any plans to sell him. But I think if you were patient and you found the right buyer, you could definitely get your money back at $1,000 for this piece or $1,100. So I think the value is a 3 out of 5 on this, which, as a reminder, 3 is still a good score. This means it's not amazing or way above expectations. So does this statue have the X factor? So I want to clarify, this score is not contingent on any of the other stuff. This score is simply, when I look at this statue, am I kind of taken back like, wow, that's pretty cool. That's very unique. That's very different. I like it a lot. And while I don't think this has the X factor of being a 5 out of 5 statue, I think it's a 4 out of 5. It is incredibly cool. I actually wish I could display it a little bit higher than where I'm going to put it. If you guys want to see where I'm going to put it, make sure to check out the Extreme Channel Instagram and Facebook page. The link is in the description below. And also, too, while we're speaking of it and I'm whoring myself out, if you haven't hit the like button on this video, make sure to do that or subscribe to the channel. Otherwise, check out some of these other videos. Let me know your thoughts on this piece, and I'll talk to you in a few days. Take care.